Hello everyone, welcome to 2024 and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello my friends, welcome and welcome back to my channel. So yeah, it's a new year, new Jen. Well, not really, same old Jen, same old bullshit. But we're here. I am sitting in front of a new bookshelf though. I finally am starting to replace bookshelves on like this side of my apartment. I put a new one on the other side of my apartment. This one won't be changing. This is one that my father handmade for me, but my cheap Target bookshelves, it's time to upgrade. You know, I bought those at a time when, I had a lot less money, as well as they were like, oh, well, these are temporary bookshelves. Well, I've lived in this apartment for 6 years now. I think it's okay to start investing in better furniture or better things like that. And, you know, when I move sometime, we'll figure out how to get them out of here, you know? But yeah, we have some books to talk about today. And I wanted to sit kind of in front of this, see how I feel about the vibe. I just wanted a little bit of a different background around me. You know what I mean? I've had the same background for a few years now. And so now that I have a prettier one behind me, I have my fan fiction shelf right behind me. Look how pretty that is. I have a dark romance shelf and then I have some other stuff. So yeah, also since I think it was since the last weekly wrap up it's happened. I don't know, but I hit 20K. So that is amazing. Thank you all so much for making that happen. And to celebrate, I did give away some channel memberships in a recent premiere. I just got done with the premiere of my favorites of 2023, which was awesome. That video is like an hour and a half, but you know what? Watch it in bite-sized chunks. Get your pen and paper ready. Get ready for all of my favorites. And we're going to talk about a few of them because I did just finish my reread in the last couple days of January because I wasn't going to rush through these books. But we also still have quite a few other ones to talk about. So I did, as I said, gift some memberships. So we have 5 new channel members to welcome. And so there is Risha, Emily D, Shaylin V, Taylor S, and Tracy Powell. All were gifted a membership, who are the first members to join of 2024. In 2024, I want to find some better ways to make my members feel included again. I know that a lot of the focus does go to Patreon. Channel memberships, I think, have come to feel like, you know, I don't know, I feel like they're not as made of a big a deal anywhere anymore because, you know, YouTube does take a pretty hefty percent of a lot of those things. They take a hefty percent of everything that we make, for sure. But, you know, that is still the only place to get early access to my videos, and there is still a monthly live chat that I still do with a few people who come to that. They've been coming to that for, wow, over 3 years we've had that. I'm not sure. I think about that. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. But anyway, we're going to get into the books I talked about because I know I say this every time. I do. Well, I don't say it every time. I'm honest sometimes. This one should go pretty quickly because a lot of these books have been talked about in other places, so I'm not going to harp on them. But I mean, I'm sure we'll still make it a decent amount of time here. I got my iced coffee, got all my books and my notes in front of me. And yeah, we're going to get into it. I have changed a couple things about the form that I fill out now. I think I've shared this before. One of the ways I keep track of my books is I created a Google form. I first saw this done by another group and I can't remember who it was, but it was over 4 years ago now. So it's basically my own thing now. I didn't really keep much of what they did because a lot of theirs had to do with, it was focused towards just fiction reading in general, and mine is very targeted to romance, obviously, because that's what I do. But that's how I get my stats that I talk about in the monthly wrap-ups. But every year I find something I want to tweak just a little bit. I discover that I don't really care about knowing a certain thing, and there's other things I want to know. So this time, one of like a couple of the big differences I want to mention is I'm now tracking the names of narrators so that I'm not just like, oh, I think this was narrated by whoever. I have a spot to write the narrators. I also want to track and see how many different narrators I listened to this year. I also am tracking if the spice fits the story, which was something that I put into my 6-star rating scale that I did for the favorites. And then I also now am tracking if it's in a series and which number it is. Because I always would ask, like, is it a series or a standalone? But to me, that doesn't super mean anything. I want to track, like, which series that it's a part of, too. So those are a few things I just added in for myself. And without further ado, let's get in. So like I said, this will probably go kind of quick for a few of them. Oh, but I also want to show off like my pretty journal. I do have a video about annotating coming this week, okay? That is something I've been asked to do. And over the like holiday time, I went ahead and made a video on the journal and all the supplies I use. But now instead of having 2 different notebooks for the books, I made a page in here that has the reading plans and then one that does have the books I get read. So I'm loving that. I was just nervous to do it because sometimes I don't have the neatest handwriting. And so when I write them in really small places, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm forcing myself to slow down when I do stuff. So anyway, here we go. I did a reread of Minks by Sophie Lark. This is one that ended up coming down to 5 stars instead of staying at a 6. Again, I'll point this out a few times, so I'll just right now go ahead and link the video up there. Do I have to go this way? I forget at this point, but I'll link the video up there. That's my favorites of the year because I'm going to talk about 4 of them real quick. But this was an erotic romance. This is about an escort and a billionaire. They were both sharks. Like, they are both alphas in their own way. I really like that. And Ramses, our hero, decides that he wants the heroine because she's the hottest thing he's ever seen. And she is kind of this unattainable escort. Like, you can't just hire her straight up. Like, you have to almost like apply in a way and get chosen by Blake because she's that badass. But these two enter into, you know, a client and escort relationship, but they also enter into this like mind fuck with each other as well. And it gets really hot. Like, there's some spicy stuff. This, I've shared this in the past. I actually didn't say it in my yearly wrap up, but this had the coolest look at pet play I've ever read. That is pretty much on my ick list. Like, it is, besides, you know, saying like good boy or good girl, which is not have to be categorized with pet play. I'm not a huge fan of leashes or of wearing ears or the butt plugs that have a tail. Like, pet play is just not one of my kinks. There's no shame for it because this is a shame-free zone, but we also get to have our no list, right? But because it was written by Sophie, I was gonna try it. And I love how she explores why the kink works for these two and why it is more than just what it seems, which is the way it always should be with BDSM. If that's ever in there just for shock value, well, that's fine, but that the author's not trying to do any more with it then. And pet play is chosen for very specific reasons in this, and it's done in probably the sexiest way I've ever seen. And, you know, because the lovely Lena Erickson does the art, you are going to have art throughout this whole book. In fact, if you read the ebook, it's colored. It's gorgeous. So yeah, this one did go down to 5 though. And if you want to see my reasons for that, go ahead and check out that video. You know, I got to point you to it a little way. That is a 5 on the spice scale though. Just, I'll let you guys know that part. All right. Then I listened to The Duke Gets Even. So this is one of the first ones that I got to use this for. So I listened to, oops, come here. I listened to The Duke Gets Even. This was a reread. And this one was narrated by, ooh, where'd I put it now? I was all cool and like wrote it. Okay. It was narrated by Kit Swan and Timothy Campbell. That's right. This had 2 narrators. I've only listened to that in like Scarlett Scott does that. And like 1 or 2 others. I've definitely listened to historical romances narrated by men. There are a few authors who have men who narrate. I believe there's a male narrator for a lot of Kerrigan Burns books and for a few others that I love. But this one has dual narration. It's not duet because it is 3rd person, but it is dual narration. So whenever the POV changes, we get a different one. So that made this really fun to listen to because I read an arc of this one last year. But this one is the 4th book in the what was this? It's right here, The Fifth Avenue Rebels, and it's my favorite Joanna Shupe that I've read. This one also didn't stay at 6 stars for me. Again, you can see more of that in the video. I know I'm going to be a broken record, but that did not lessen my enjoyment. Any of these in my favorites that went from a 6 to a 5, I still love 5-star books. When I'm trying to pick my best of the best, I have to be nitpicky. I have to be nitpicky because I'm someone who I do like to rank them. A lot of people would just say, all of these are my faves. I can't choose one. Well, I like to choose one because I want there to be a winner every year. That's just how I feel. But they're all winners in the sense of like their favorite. So anyway, this one is a class difference. It takes place in America, and our Duke, he really needs to marry a wealthy heiress. He also needs an heiress who's free of scandal. He needs to find someone, make them his duchess, and bring them back to England to save his crumbling estate. And we've watched him throughout this series hit a lot of rough patches. He's had a lot of almost marrying Nellie's friends at different times, and then finally these two catch each other's eye, and it's very hard for anyone else to get in the way. So yeah, definitely check that out. So one other thing, I'm just going to try to go with the light today. Again, I know it doesn't bother you guys, but it bothers me. But we're sitting in a new spot. The light's a little bit more direct instead of me getting the cast off over here, so I'm going to try to be cool and just go with it. But I also might get annoyed and close it eventually, so if it just disappears, I'm why. See, it's getting really strong. It's very cloudy today. But of course, once I sat down here, there it is. All right, a reread of When the Earl Met His Match. This one, I also listened to it. This one, I love Stacey Reid. I love Stacey Reid so much. This book made it into my top 10 for sure. This is a pregnant woman who is in trouble, and she ends up going to Hugh, who at the time is a Viscount, for help, and they enter a marriage of convenience where he's sure he's never going to love her. It's just going to be a marriage of convenience. He's going to love her child as his own, but that's all it's going to be. He's also a speechless hero, so there's sign language that's used in here, and they just fall head over heels for each other, and good luck trying to tell yourself that it's just a business arrangement, because it ain't going to happen. So another one of my 6-star reads. And then the book that, if you have watched the video, you know that it was my favorite read of the year, and it was the last one added to the list, and it was also the last one that I reread, because I normally wouldn't need to reread a book that I had just read, but I wanted to annotate it anyway. So P.S. You're Intolerable, yes, I have both copies. I don't normally do that because I don't always need a, alternate cover or discrete version. Julia Wolf calls them her special editions, which I appreciate. However, this one, I wanted this copy for 2 reasons. One, it has some of the notes that are a part of the P.S. You're Intolerable, but it also has little baby shoes. It has little baby shoes, and it just makes my heart so happy. So yes, my favorite book of the year. I won't spend any time on it in this video. You will have to watch the other one or any of the 3 other videos in December where I gushed about this, because we are going to keep it moving and not talk about that. I talk about it for 15 minutes in my favorites video. So if there's anything you want to know about it, you will. The tropes, just to keep it single, this one is also a pregnant single mother. She gets a job as an assistant, and Elliot is her boss. She thinks he's really grumpy, very detached, but she discovers a whole new side to him when she has her baby. Okay, we'll have to fix that. And ends up being the man of her dreams. Spoke too soon. Had to close it. That's too bright. Jeez. Can't give me a break. All right. Okay, so after I finished my rereads, it was time to do my official first reads of the year, right? So the first new to me books. These were supposed to be the very first books, but again, as I said, I had to finish some rereads. So I actually just did a reading vlog. I have done this reading vlog. This was the 4th year in a row that I did a first books of the year reading vlog. It used to be that I did a 24-hour reading vlog, but I ended up going to my friends for New Year's Day to do some fun stuff, so it didn't happen, but that's okay. It was still fun doing this reading vlog, and I don't really share reading vlogs on the main channel anymore. They all go to Patreon for the most part, except for very special events. So if you watch that vlog and you like the style of that video, which, here's the thing, people do ask me to put vlogs on this channel, and then the vlogs do horrible on this channel. People aren't here for my vlogs. They go to my Patreon for the vlogs. So I know some people are very wanting of them, but my vlogs just tank on this channel, and I have to be business minded in some ways. Do I put a video here that, number one, takes a long time to film because it's filmed in over multiple days and then isn't going to do as well? So anyway, that's just a little behind that. When people ask me where the vlogs are, I'm like, that's why it's behind the paywall. I hate being that person, but I do have to be business minded in some sense. And so the people who love my vlogs can have access to them there. But anyway, this one's available for everyone. You can taste test it, see if you're interested in it. And the first book that I read in that one was Mine for Yours by Harlow Ray. I'd only read one other book by Harlow Ray, and I really like these because they're set in Minnesota, which is where I grew up. And this one is a best friend's little sister, and in this case, it's a dead best friend. So Rhodes was business partners with his friend Trevor, and they own this bar called the Bent Pedal. And when his friend passes away, he actually dies in a motorcycle accident, which is very sad. Rhodes discovers that his friend left his half of the business to his sister. And his sister is a young single mother. Rhodes is a single dad too, by the way. She's a young single mother. And she actually needs kind of a fresh start because she's had a lot of drama dealing with her exes. Well, not even her exes, but the baby daddy. He wasn't ever really anything super significant. She's been tied up in that for years. And so her brother leaving her this part of the business, it's the perfect push to get her back to her hometown and help her get away from that situation. And so she's there and she's ready to be involved in this business. And Rhodes has some feelings about it. So I'm not going to say any more because you can go watch the vlog if you want my more detailed thoughts. I'll just tell you that this was pretty good. I had a fun time with these characters. The narrators for this one, I almost forgot. I listened to this one. This was narrated by Joe Arden and Avery Karras. So you can find this one on Audible if you want. I didn't find it on a free place. You'd have to snag this one if you wanted it. And I gave this one 4 stars. And it was a 3 on the spice scale. And yeah, if you want more details, you can check out that vlog. Next, I read The Jock by Steph Bohrer. This one was a gift from, I think I won it in a book raffle actually, so I don't have who the person is. But this is the first book in the team series, which is currently only 2 books. I don't know if Tal plans to put more books in the series or not. I don't know when Tal plans to have another book out, period. He hasn't had one out since, like, I think the summer of 2023. And, like, I have done some digging. So if you know if there's a book coming up next or he said anything, please let me know, because I joined his reader group on Facebook and all of the posts are just from, like, admins and from readers. I haven't found anything new, and now I'm a Steph Bohrer fan and I'm collecting all of his books and I want to know when another book is coming. So if you know, please let me know. There's nothing new on his website or the reader group, and I don't want to fall for another author this hard and then there be nothing new. Like, that happens too often. But anyway, this is an romance. It is a college romance. This one is about Wes, who is the, I don't know his position. He's not the quarterback though. The quarterback is the second book. And that is about a different character, but he's a very important member. Is he a running back, linebacker? I don't know what his position is. It's talked about in here. But he's actually doing a 3-week study abroad in Paris to get like a language credit there and to do that. And he ends up being put with Justin, who is he's also from the same school. And Justin is actually really bummed because he got partnered with a jock who he thinks will discover that he's gay and then be a shit to him, because he's had that happen in his high school career when he was out. And he just doesn't want to deal with it. He wanted to be in Paris and meet some hot guys and bone some Parisians and like go to like do all these fun things. And he gets partnered with this jock. What he doesn't know though is that Wes has been gay as long as he can remember. And he has had to keep it a secret. And this little trip to Paris is their little piece of heaven where they can be who they really are. Well, at least Wes can. But when he gets back home, there's a lot of pressure that he's facing. And there's a lot of people counting on him. It isn't just about whether he wants to be out or not. So this one, if you'd like to know my more in detail thoughts, well, you know what I'm going to say. This one, though, was a 5-star read for me, and it was a 2.5 on the Spice scale. And like all Talbauer, have your tissue pack ready, have some migraine medication because you might cry till your head hurts, and just be prepared to have your guts ripped out, but also to just feel so much love in your chest that your heart's going to beat out. Like, he writes such beautiful stories, and I'm very excited because his most recent release from last year was on a lot of people's favorites list of this year, as well as like You and Me was on a lot of people's list too. And I have a copy of his like news, so I'm very excited to read those for sure. And those were the 2 positive books in the vlog, and then I have a couple rants in there. So again, I won't waste our time here with it because I'm also just over it already. But those 2 books were really great, really good. But then I ended up DNFing Shadows and Lace by Teresa Medeiros. I'll show you this. This was just a random pick. Nobody recommended this one to me, but I have purchased a bunch of Teresa Medeiros in, you know, thrift shops and from like thrift books for the last like year because I've read a few of her books and really liked them. And so I put this one in the poll and this one got voted for. But this one is like a medieval one, and the heroine has to go stay with the hero for a year because her father owes a debt. And I didn't get too much further than them on the road together. So I know I dipped out of this one quick. I did. But I just was not feeling it. And because I was trying to get through my books in that vlog, it was already taking a long time. I was like, I'm not pushing it. I have a lot of arcs to get to. So I really needed to keep on schedule. And I was like, this isn't vibing. There are many other Teresa Medeiros to read, and ones that are rated a lot more highly by people I trust. Like a lot of you have read Teresa Medeiros and recommended her to me. And this is not one of the ones people have recommended. So yeah, you can hear my rant in that one, but I DNF'd this, so no Steam rating or rating from me. Then the one that I really let loose on, because I did push myself to finish it. Oh, you can hear my whole like 15-minute rant about it, but I read The Last Ride by Anya Summers. This series is called Seals on Wheels, and it's about SEAL Team 8, who one of their buddies has committed the offing of himself. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here. I always see other people say other words, so I guess I will too. And he left this box of letters for his fellow soldiers to deliver to what looks to be mostly ex-girlfriends and his ex-wife. And they're supposed to deliver these in person and watch the person read it so that they know, you know, the letter's been read. And they agree to do this. They're like, let's do this last ride for our buddy. It'll be a good time. It'll be cathartic for us to do. And the first stop, which is what this book is about an ex-girlfriend from a while ago, but it was someone that he supposedly really loved. And I say supposedly for reasons you'll find out. And she is not interested in reading this letter. And so Ben, who is our hero of this one, he's very kind of like upset with her that she won't read it. And he honestly blames her a little bit for Ben spiraling. Because even though she's not the last woman he's been with, like just because she's an ex, like he has a wife or like had an ex-wife and other exes. But Ben blames Mariah as the one that really hurt him and made him spiral eventually. So fuck Ben. Fuck Ben. And again, you can watch my review for the details. I will point out to you, though, the thing that pissed me off the most, and then we'll move along, because we still have a couple other good ones to talk about. It pissed me off that, like, the dead man, he took himself very flippantly in all of his letters. Like, I don't know another way to say this. He made, like, a lot of jokes about killing himself. He made these letters like very jokey to the guys about like, I'll see you in hell, like I'll see you someday, and like all this stuff. And then like it just bothered me. Not that someone might not, because they're not going to be here when people are reading their letters, but I'm like, what? And then for Ben to blame Mariah, who again hasn't been with this dead man in a while, he's an older ex of hers, for him to say, like, you saying no to him is the reason he spiraled, which eventually led to his unaliving of himself, really irritated me because of what it kind of implies about veterans and service members who do have a very high rate of unaliving. And I talk about that in the video. I looked up the statistics on it because I was upset. And I know it's just being used for a plot point, but like, we wouldn't say that if someone misrepresented another disability. We'd be like, well, why did you do this? PTSD and depression and mental health, like, shouldn't we be past that point now of making it like a flippant plot point? And his death leads them to all find, because this is what I implies. Again, each one of these letters is like, I believe it's a different woman. I think they're all women that they're supposed to bring them to. Let me see if I can find the list. Yeah, Mariah, Rory, Beth, Paige, and Nora. They're all women, and they're all ex-girlfriends, a sister, and wives. Okay, so one of them is his sister, and the rest are ex-girlfriends and ex-wives. So is each one of his, like, friends gonna end up with one of them? So is this dead man who killed himself, did he kind of just take himself out of the way so that these guys could be with his exes and stuff? I mean, I know that's not his reason for doing it, but that's what the author is using as the reason why, like, each of these men is gonna find their happily ever after. It's gonna be from someone related to this dead man. So I was pretty pissed at it, but I forced myself to finish it because I wanted to give it a 2.5, and I did. And so it's 2.5. It was a 2.5 on the spice scale. And my trigger warnings were unaliving of a serviceman. There was also stalking. There was harm to an animal. It wasn't death, but there was something sad that an animal goes through in this one. And I just felt like it belittled this and used it as a reason that these men will find happily ever afters because their friend, who was a service member, killed himself. And I just, it turns my stomach that it's used in that way. It'd be different if it was going to be one of them, but I'm very sure it's going to be like, the one gets with his sister because she brings a letter. The one gets with his ex-wife because he brings a letter. And I'm like, wow, it feels like we just need to remove this guy so all these people could have happily ever afters, because they wouldn't be with them if this man didn't die. So, all right. Then I needed an audiobook because I had some stuff to do. I needed to clean my apartment a bit after New Year, and I also needed something to watch while I built my shelf. And so I went to my Audible Plus collection in my library, because I have a collection of all the ones I've downloaded from there. And I snagged this one that it is actually, like, it was audiobook only for a while. It was a Audible exclusive, and it's a college romance called So That Got Weird by Amelia Kingston. Now the series is called Painfully Awkward Romances. Hold on. Sorry, spam trying to call me while I'm filming. Like, what the hell, man? So yeah, this one is a college romance, sports romance. It's the nerdy, awkward heroine and a quarterback on the football team. He was in foster care. He was an orphan. Like, he's been through some tough stuff. And our heroine is actually the daughter of a very wealthy family. And at the beginning of the story, her mother has died and left her an inheritance. And part of it she has access to right away. She doesn't have access to all of it right away, but part of it she's also a virgin. And her friend is encouraging. She's been trying to go on dates to find someone and lose her virginity too. It's that kind of story, which I'm not always a huge fan of, because I'm like, why are you just trying to lose your cherry when you're 20? You know, you're 20, 21. It's not the same as like a 30 or 40-year-old. I don't know. That's just how I see it. But she wants to do that. And so her friend is encouraging her to hire an escort because she has this money now. She's like, you should hire an escort. And instead, she doesn't feel quite comfortable about that, because she feels like she'd be extremely intimidated by, you know, paying a professional. But instead, she stumbles across this website that is like connected with the school almost. And it's like it's a sex rating thing. So how the sex is with the person, you're rating the scale, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And she ends up discovering a lot about this quarterback, Austin. Her name is Elizabeth, by the way, and that he's there on scholarship and that he's not making a ton of money. And so she decides to proposition him to pay him $5,000 for 4 weeks, 3 days a week of sex training, working their way up to it. And at first, he's not like offended, but he's kind of like, did someone put you up to this? But then he ends up losing his job and he takes this job. So the plan is for him to teach her. And of course, they fall in love while he's doing that. And this wasn't that great, but it was narrated by, as I think I said, it was narrated by Teddy Hamilton and Elizabeth Hart. So there were some good narrators for this one. That is mostly why I'd grabbed it. And it was a pretty quick audiobook. But it also just wasn't that great. It relied a little too heavily on the tropes of the story. The heroine's a nerd. She's a gamer. And like her game world is like all she has. And it just relied too heavily on that type of stuff for me. So I was like, meh. But it was a fun listen. And I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And it was a 2.5 on the spice scale. And it does have kind of a trigger warning for disinterested family. Because her father is still alive. But he is very kind of like neglectful. And her parents, you know, it was very much they were the wealthy parents who didn't give good attention. She was just really kind of ignored by them. Okay, now we have 2 arcs to go over real quickly here. So there is Savage Wounds by Lillian Harris. So this one comes out on the 8th. So I need to get my review written for this one. We're going to do that. But this is the 4th book in the Messina crime family. Very excited to have read this one. This is a series that I think I first started in like October or November when I actually proof listened to the first audiobook for the series. I hadn't even read the books yet, and I got asked if I wanted to proofread the audio. So I did that for books 1 and 2. But then she sent me the arc for the 4th book, and I hadn't read the 3rd one yet, which I think I talked about in the last weekly wrap up. I read the 3rd one, which was good, and it had a cliffhanger, man. And I don't want to ruin that because it's a huge part of the series. So I'm going to talk about this book while leaving some secrets about what's going on. But there's a big cliffhanger at the end of the 3rd one about who this hero is in this one. So the hero's name is Adriel. But I won't tell you how he's connected to anything. We'll just say that he is. And he, in the beginning of this, is stalking not only the Messina family, but also Kayla, who Kayla happens to have been one of the best friends of Elise, who is the heroine of the 1st book. And if you've read that one, you know that Elise and Kayla and Jade, these 3 girls, they were taken captive on a road trip and forced into sex trafficking. And they were in that life for 8+ years, either way, 8 or 9 years before they slowly got out. Like first Jade got out, and I believe that's a part of a different series. I want to read that one where like how Jade got out. But the first one is Elise getting out, and she ends up in a marriage of convenience with Michael. And then this last book is about Kayla, who they do rescue Kayla at the end of the 1st one, but she's still very messed up. You know, she's still, of course she is. She was sexually tortured and abused and raped and all those awful things. And we do have a little bit of graphic content in that because she does have nightmares and she remembers a lot of it. This has kind of left her actually though with some rape fantasy that she has and this is the thing, like why I'm someone who is attracted to CNC and rape fantasies, because for her, she wants to be forced but know that she can say no and know that she'll be able to get out of it. So once she feels a lot of shame about that. She wants men to want her, but her to have control. And that actually leads her to have kind of this secret job as a stripper, as a dancer, because she wants to be seen and desired because she was made to feel so horrible about it, but them not be able to touch her. She wants to have that power part of it. And she's been doing that for a while, but again, keeping it a secret because Elise wouldn't understand. Her other friends wouldn't understand why she needed to do this, in her opinion anyway, right? And she catches Adriel's eye, who, as I've said, he is stalking the Messina family, and in that he sees Kayla and he starts stalking Kayla as well. And Kayla has become, well, we see her become in the beginning of this kind of a vigilante serial killer. So Kayla becomes a serial killer in this book. Okay, we see it happen very early on, but I want to put that out there. And while watching her, Adriel sees her doing this, and his mind is kind of blown. And she's not too organized by it, and if she wouldn't have had some help, she probably would have got caught, because her first kill is very impulsive. She just wants the guy to stop touching her, and she kills him. And this leads her to Michael putting a bodyguard on her, because she doesn't know what to do about this, so she calls Michael to help her clean it up. And Michael is very, upset, very disappointed in her, which I have to say, Judgy McJudgerson over there, Mr. Part of the Mafia, wanted to judge someone for killing a bad guy. Anyway, just saying. But that leads her to be given a bodyguard who is now, watching her every move and is like, you need to stop getting yourself in these situations. So there's, and I really don't want to say any more to this one, because there's some good reveals and secrets in this one. There was a few times where I was really worried about how it was going to play out, because Lillian Harris does go a bit overboard for some of her stuff, but you know what? In a mafia romance, I can go with it. If you love serial killing couples, Butcher and Blackburn, if you love getting vengeance against sexual predators and things like that, you may find this couple right up your alley. Now, this one does get pretty damn violent, though. There is, as I said, CNC, there's choking, there's knife play, blood play, a little bit of the, we killed and now we're, reveling in, we get some of that in here. So, again, be prepared. But I ended up giving this 5-star. It was more of a 4.5, but, this was the last in the series, and I really enjoyed this arc of this book, so I rounded it up. I was a little bit nice to it. But I really appreciated where she went with this story and how it played out. So I gave it 5 stars. It actually is really only a 3 on my spice scale. I know there's some very, intense, sexy stuff in it, but there's actually not a lot of it. So this one is more of, the content might be a higher spice, but the quantity isn't. It's a very slow burn to that. Not only because of her, sexual past, and the hero's, worried about letting himself loose on her, but also he is a bit overwhelmed by the feels that he's having for her. So we run into some of that. All right, now the last book I just finished last night. It was a nice little novella. Now, I had started my next mafia romance, which is J.R. Cole's new one is coming out. But I just couldn't go from mafia to mafia. I needed a little bit of breathing room. So I had just been sent Denial by Ali Marr. Ali Marr was a debut author earlier in 2023, and she was so kind enough to send me an arc of that one. I can't remember what it's called now, but it had to do with submission. It was BDSM. It was a dominant female, and it was about a sex club and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. There was some writing quirks that I didn't care for. I didn't like the tense that it was in, and I also didn't feel as emotionally connected to the characters because of the tense that it was written in. It felt weird. But this one, when she told me what this was about, and I know she was maybe a little worried about how much it involved, because sometimes when a new author is telling you about a book, they almost try to over rationalize it to you, and I was just like, girl, I love orgasm denial. I assume that's what it's about since it's called Denial. This new series she's starting is called Kinkotica, is what she's gonna call it. So she's gonna write this series of different, I believe they'll all be novellas, and they'll focus on a different kink, and I'm all here for that. She's gonna do one about primal play, she said, and there's another one she has an idea about as well. And you guys know this is right up Jen's alley. So when she was like, can I send it to you? I was like, please do. But I don't know if I'll get to it before the release day, because I was like, my January is booked. But she sent it to me the other day, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to read this, because I knew that it was a novella. And a lot of new books coming out these days are so chunky. We talk about that. They're so chunky. And so to have a novella to read that was going to be kinky, I was excited for. So that's enough explanation about this book. So this one, Denial, is about a married couple who they've been married for, I don't know if she said the exact years, but they say they've been together for decades. So, at least 20 plus years, right? They've been married, and they're in a long-term 24/7 dynamic, basically. The hero wears a collar. He is a hard working man and he wears the collar. And our heroine is his, dom, and they have all of their like protocols and everything. And it's just, they're very well-oiled machine. They do their sexy things and they live their life and they love each other very much. They're in a very happy relationship. But things have gotten a little stale for them. They've been living this dynamic for so long. They feel like there's nothing new. There's no new levels they can go to. But there is something that the hero really wants. And his name is David. I think, yeah, his name is David. And he wants to be caged. So he wants a cock cage. And he wants her to, hold the key for it and to do like a longer amount of time. And she is interested in this. However, in the past, they've always like decided the time ahead of time. And he, of course, he has a key in case of emergencies. You should always have the safety of like having a key for your cock cage. Don't ever keep it impossible to have. But if she wants to do this, she's like, you keep too much control if you know the day that I will let you out. And so she really wants him to trust her to not tell him when he'll get to have an orgasm next. So this leads them into this where he is going to give complete control over to her. And he's, only going to take the cage off when she takes it off of him. And he's not going to know when he gets it. Now, this type of kink is a bit past what like I'm comfortable with, right? And I think it will be for a lot of people. But if you are a student, as it were, of kinky things and you like to try different ones but not be completely overwhelmed by it, I think this is a great one to try, because what's beautiful is they are a married couple. They love each other so much. Their level of trust, like you couldn't read this happen in a brand new couple. Like that's kind of the point. You couldn't read this from a brand new couple, because it would be so unbelievable that a couple who's just started fucking and is just getting into BDSM would let someone have that level of control over them and who didn't live with them. These are still people living their normal days. Like they have to go to work and they have to live their life, but they're still like in their dynamic while they do. But it's also not the kind where like it doesn't feel like slavery or anything. They want this in their lives, But anyway, it's a short one, so I don't want to tell like the whole thing, but it was really beautiful to watch them reach a new level of trust and to get the excitement back into their dynamic. And that's the journey we're seeing. So we're seeing them, they're happy, but they've gotten complacent in how they do it. And it's like, if you're complacent in your submission and dominance, like, why are you doing it? Because then it's just kind of a prop. Is it just, is it just a role like you put on every day, or is it something you actually want to live in? So this won't be for everyone. It won't, but it also was a really good spicy novella if you are interested in kink and what submission and dominance means. And I also really liked this as a dominant female book. It was fascinating to see a woman having some of the thoughts that I've seen like men have before, of her wanting to be like, I want to break him. I want to see him in tears and begging for me, because I know like he loves me so much that he will be vulnerable enough to put himself in this place. And like, I don't know, like I'm not super into female dominance. It's not my favorite thing to read, because I usually just, it doesn't feel like genuine to me all the time. But this one, I think Ali Mar really tapped into that in a really beautiful way. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. And I gave it 5 stars for 2 reasons. One, I feel like it showed this little peep into their life during this window of time where there was still room for a character arc. Number one, it's difficult to tell a married couple romance. I talked about that just a little bit ago when I talked about The Man I Know. It's difficult to tell a story of an already married couple and be able to have there be a story arc. But because they're at this, I won't say it's a critical point, like they're not on the border of divorce or border of breaking up, but they're in this place where like something needs to change, or else like, why are we living our lives this way anymore, So I gave it 5 stars because I think she hit everything she was trying to hit. And I got emotional a couple of times, and I thought this couple was really beautiful. And it is a 5 on the spice rating because this is an erotic romance, and I mean there's sex, multiple sex in every chapter, but it's all like different and all of that. So she has a full list of the kinks on the first page of it, but I pulled out the ones I feel like were used the most and were most important. So there was obviously orgasm denial and edging. There was also somnophilia. Oh, that scene is hot in here. There's pegging, there's other toys used, there's obviously the cock cage, there's degradation and praise, there's nipple clamps, there's semi-public play. Oh my gosh, that was also a hot scene. Like, my heart was beating so fast. And then kind of the trigger warning for this one. There mostly aren't like trigger warnings in this. It's the like, if you like the kink or not is your content warning. But the one kink that I think needs a little more of that is there is a scene of branding in this. And I don't want to spoil how or like why it's happening, but it was very important to the story. But that's very hard for me to read because I can't understand why someone wants to do it. But the rationalization in the story worked. I just, as a person outside of fiction, I'm like, why would someone do that? So, gotta give you that. So anyway, see, I still managed to talk for a long time, but definitely check out those videos I was talking about if you want even more in-depth on everything. Make sure you check out my channel memberships or Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. And if you'd like to watch some more videos, you can do that right now. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.